All right, Black Box Radio, guys. I'm in Baltimore. First, I'm in the Baltimore studio, so you know I'm always in the South Carolina studios. I'm in Baltimore. I'm at home, and it just feels so good. The weather is beautiful. Baltimore is beautiful this time of year. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. It's a beautiful day, and I have a very, very, very special guest. I'm gonna get to her. You see that beautiful lady sitting over there? I'm gonna get to her. I just want to say greetings to everyone. I'm Queen, and I'm a host at Black Box Radio. We are a multimedia platform illustrating Black excellence. We platform Black people, we expose Black genius, and more than anything, we disseminate information to other communities, but we definitely disseminate information to the Black community. That's our goal. We are authentically Black, and we set up spaces for Black faces. That's what we do. And so we're in the city, baby. You hear the police downtown. It's Baltimore. This is real right here. So you hear the ambulance. Pardon that. So I want you guys to sit down, listen, open your ears, because we got a lot to talk about tonight. Tonight I have the co-founder of the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum, Dr. Joanne Martin. Say hi to people, Dr. Joanne.
Hello, everyone.
We're so happy to have you. I When I got that email, I can't stop smiling. You see all my teeth because I'm I'm able to sit with you. So I'm very very grateful, and thanks for letting Black Box Radio come into your life. So I really appreciate that. That's first.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So we got a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about. So question C is on the ballot. We're going to talk about that, but first I want you to kind of give the listeners like a little background on the Blacks and Wax. Just can you give us a little history? Just a little.
Well, the museum was founded in 1983
Okay.
as a museum. We were located in downtown Baltimore on Saratoga Street near the Inner Harbor and Lexington Market, which some people know about, but the major landmarks in downtown Baltimore. We opened with 22 wax figures,
Hmm.
but our history goes back to the early 80s with four wax figures. My husband, Elmer, got the idea that we were going to start a museum. We knew nothing about, we were going to start a wax museum. We knew nothing about wax museums or wax figures, but we were able to just do some research. He went to the Library of Congress and came back home and said that his research showed that there was no Black History Wax Museum anywhere in America, and at that time, if it wasn't in America, it wasn't anywhere any place in the world.
That's the
And
truth.
then we started trying to figure out, well, how do you start one? What do you need? And we started. We had gone to Potter's Wax Museum in St. Augustine, Florida,
Okay.
and that's really when the idea of a Black History Wax Museum hit. And so just trying to figure out, where do you begin? We called around wax museums trying to get information. It's a very closed industry. Nobody would give us any information.
Hmm.
Um, and then one day we called, and somebody must have felt sorry for us. So they told us, well, there's a major wax figure maker on the East Coast. In fact, he's in your city. All of this calling around that we done all over
In Baltimore?
in Baltimore. His name was Rob Dorfman.
Oh my
And
goodness.
Elmer went to Dorfman. His business is still existing. We went to Dorfman Museum's this display. Elmer met with him and told him what he was trying to do. And Rob said, well, I build wax museums and own wax museums all over this nation. Why don't you and your wife let me build it and own it, and the two of you run it for me?
No.
And Elmer said, look, you have our idea now, and you have all the resources. So if you decided to take our idea, there's nothing that we could do about it. We couldn't sue you because we have no money. And we probably lose even if we did. But even though you have the resources, I don't feel that you have the passion or the right to tell our story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think it kind of threw Rob Dorfman for a minute, but he thought about it. He said, "You're right," and he backed off and set us up on what today would be called a layaway plan. So those four wax figures came from Rob, and I worked at Coppin State College at the time, university now, and Elmer worked at Morgan, of course. And when we get paid, then we go to and give Rob some money on the four wax figures. That Elmer would jokingly say, "Well, Rob, I guess today we paid for an eyeball." And, and that was how we got started. We began to acquire more wax figures, and Elmer were operating from out of my car and setting these, going to Morgan and Coppin and places, the churches and schools and wherever, and setting these four wax figures up, and then the six, and adding to the collection. But in the guest bedroom, there they were, Mary McLeod Bethune and Frederick Douglass and Elmer gathering all this stuff to add to the exhibit, that you couldn't even open the door of that room eventually. And I just gave him an ultimatum. It's got to be me or Mary McLeod Bethune here in this place. And so we moved on Saratoga Street
Okay.
and became the Great Blacks in Wax Museum, because up to that point, Elmer had given us the lofty name, the Martin's Wax uh, exhibit. Let's see, the Martin's Wax Exhibition of Great Afro Americans. That was
Oh, like that.
and we set up in different places. But
Hmm.
then when we moved on Saratoga Street, we became the Great Blacks in Wax Museum, and now the National Great Blacks in Wax Museum, through an act of the U.S. Congress,
Hmm.
legislation sponsored by Barbara Mikulski and our own Congressman Elijah Cummings, and signed into law by Bush.
Beautiful. And now you are at, what's your address now?
We're at 1601 East North Avenue, right in the heart of an African American community, a fragile community.
Yes.
But Elmer, his two things that were his mantra: community development and cultural development go hand in hand. That's one. The
Mm.
other, conventional wisdom all over this nation, is that you hide your poverty areas. And once you succeed in hiding them, then you can succeed in neglecting them. But that
Wow.
we were going to create a museum right in the heart of a fragile community, to say that museums matter and communities matter, and the two should not be mutually exclusive.
Well, all right. Oh my goodness, that is beautiful. You're right. If you can hide your impoverished community, you can neglect that
Neglect.
impoverished.
Exactly.
Hmm. Wow, that's only a sociologist would come up with that. Dr. Elmer was special. He was definitely special. So my goodness. Okay, so now you are the National Great Blacks in Wax Museum, and that was that. You said that was an act of Congress. Am I correct?
Yes, we were the Great Blacks in Wax Museum, and we sponsored legislation that would make us the National Great Blacks in Wax Museum, because our story is national. And
Mm-hmm.
in fact, international. When you
It's
look at the
international.
figures and the stories that we tell, the slave ship experience, that's an experience that grounds us in Africa and the African diaspora, of
Mm-hmm.
people brought out of Africa and taken to the Americas, so North America and South America, and the Caribbeans, and so forth. We When you look at the history, some museums, African American museums, fall into certain categories, and wax museums fall into certain categories. African
Okay.
American museums are thematic, so the Civil Rights Museum or the Underground Railroad Museum,
That's
and so
true.
forth, or they are state history focused. So in Baltimore, the Reginald F. Lewis Museum of Maryland African American History.
Exactly.
Um, for wax museums, they tend to be Hall of Fame type, or horror,
Mm.
or celebrity.
Like
Uh,
Toussaint's.
yeah,
Everybody knows
right.
about Toussaint's, and yeah. Okay.
Exactly. And you're going to, for those museums, you'll find Samuel L. Jackson in one of the Tucson museums, and
Yep.
Beyonce,
Michael Jackson and
and
people like
Michael
that.
exactly.
Hmm.
But for us, it's about the history. We Our mission says little known and often neglected history. The idea that there are no um, aspects of what we can do. There are no limits to what we could do, because there are no limits to what we have done. And so being able to show not just sports and entertainment, which is what people expect. And when we first opened up, the little kids from schools come, and you ask them what did they see, and they can tell you, I saw the baseball player. They might not even know the name Jackie Robinson, but they can tell you, I saw the baseball player, and I saw the singer, and
Yes.
but our museum, um, even as it is now, and we want to do even more with the expansion, but we're talking about scientists and inventors. We're talking about the Black church, but the way the Black church worked for liberation.
Absolutely.
The AME was very much a part of the Underground Railroad
Very much.
movement.
Hmm.
And we had to fight the discrimination that where white churches and the ministers of white churches, who were very powerful during the days of slavery, they wanted to control what we learned about religion, the fact that they didn't want us to be able to read the Bible.
Yep.
And they wanted to read the Bible to us and tell us what to read. And so, and for the one of the catechisms, the question, "Who made you a slave?" God made you. God made me a slave. Why did God make you a slave? To serve my master and make a crop. So, those kinds of messages, and for Richard Allen and the ministers of the early Black churches and the founding Black churches like the
Yep.
AME and the AME Zion and the Baptists, they had to fight against the discrimination, as I said, in some cases having to sit in the balcony, um, almost like with the movie theaters.
Man.
So telling that story. Um, Elmer came up with we have an exhibit on the Underground Railroad and Harriet Tubman. We have a scene of a abolitionist, Thomas Garrett, putting a slave through what looks like a stove. And so you have a white figure, putting a slave through what looks like a stove.
Hmm.
And on the other side of the wall is Harriet Tubman. It's a faux stove,
Mm.
and she is. And you go into houses of abolitionists, um, and around their yards and so forth. You had Paul Cuffey, I think, but anyway, he had a wagon, and you'd lift up the wagon, and it was a tunnel.
Mm.
And so this whole idea of the faux stove, and Elmer's idea, again, that brain of his, um, when you come to the exhibit, you look and you see the white man and the man in the stove. And I ask kids and visitors, what do you see here? And they're thinking something evil. There's this white man burning this black man up in the stove.
In the
And then
stove. Yeah.
and that's all you see in the first part of the exhibit. Then you come down a little bit farther, and you see Harriet Tubman there. And the kids will go, oh, one of the kids yell, oh no, come, class, come here. He's doing that. He's doing something good. He's not doing anything bad. And once they see Harriet Tubman,
Yeah.
then they put it all together. When we first did that exhibit, coming again out of Elmer's brain, all of the figures there were black. The man putting them in the stove was black. The man in the stove was black, and then Harriet Tubman. Elmer said, if I change this man, putting him through the stove, to a white person, and I give him a name, an actual white person from history, I
Hmm.
give him a name, give him and a role. He's Thomas Garrett. He
Hmm.
was an abolitionist. He fought very hard alongside Harriet Tubman, supported her in her efforts to free slaves.
Hmm.
Elmer said that changes the whole conversation.
It
Uh,
does.
and it does. And
Yeah.
it's a very powerful exhibit. Elmer, we have Booker T. Washington stepping out of a book, the just this giant book in one of the scenes, and he's
Oh
stepping
wow.
out of the book up from slavery.
Wow.
And so there is a power that some people get, um, and shows like this allowing this kind of dialogue allows me to the next time someone comes into our museum, maybe they'll get it too, and maybe
Hmm.
they'll say, now I see what they're trying to convey here with and just how powerful this is,
Our
and it
stories are
really is.
powerful. Yes, our stories are so
Yeah,
powerful. And I think
yeah,
a lot of times it's so much trauma that is kind of indicative of the story that we try to stay away. But
yes,
but it also shows how powerful people can to come from that to be where we are. It should give us a smile. Unfortunately, it was traumatic. It has definitely delivered a lot of trauma on Black people as a whole, but
yes,
we've also been very, very, our survival
exactly.
is unbelievable.
Exactly. One of the things about our museum too is that we don't shy. You just said unapologetic, and we say unapologetic and uncompromising truth.
That's it.
And that's what you were referring to about what your beliefs are and what we have to do,
Yes, ma'am.
and to have a museum with a slave ship on one in one basement and a lynching exhibit in another. But
Wow.
the idea that Elmer started saying that we had to tell the story of lynching.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a very prevalent story. It's really not taught, but lynchings were everywhere in this country, and it
Exactly.
lasted longer than everything. And it's as we see today, we are
Exactly.
finding people being lynched. So
Exactly.
it is
And
never
they call
ended.
it hate crimes now, so you don't even know how many of those so-called hate crimes were actual lynchings.
Yes, ma'am. And we have no, so it's this type of history. If we don't look at it and understand it, it continues to happen. It continues
Exactly.
to
And,
play out in front of
El-
our eyes, you know?
yes, Elma said if we want our youth to believe us when we say they should have an understanding of history and an appreciation of history, we have to give them yardsticks by which to measure that history. And you can't have a yardstick if you can't talk about lynching or the slave ship experience.
That's it. How are you gonna convey it if you don't know anything about it and you
Exactly.
can't handle it? So we
And how
gotta
far it had to
yeah,
come.
yeah, we have to digest our own stories. And it can't be to a point where we cannot digest it because once we regurgitate and manifest it to our children, we can be a better people. I just really
Yes.
believe that.
Yes.
Now let me ask a question. What is the criterion to get into the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum? What
And
type of black person?
one of the things that we wanted to make sure that in respecting the history, that we didn't allow people to buy their way into the museum, that there
Mm.
really did have to be a criteria.
Mhm,
um,
mhm,
and so we talk about the Black traditions of
mm.
help and uplift
Yes,
and
ma'am.
education and religion, um, those things fitting into the criteria. So we're looking at people who personified that, who were
Mm.
representative of that. And even when we have a wax figure of Earl Graves,
Hmm.
funded by ExxonMobil.
Wow. A
Um,
Morgan
but
grad. Another
yeah,
Morgan
that's
grad.
right. Exactly. And the Earl Graves School of Business at
Mhm.
Morgan, where I just was. I was attending a program last week. Uh,
Okay.
um, but with Mr. Graves, um, when we reached out to him about his wax figure, we said we choose um, persons for depiction in wax who fit the characteristics, the traditions of uplift and protest and so forth. And so if they don't fit that, then they don't get a place in the museum. And
Hmm.
we have to. I tell people that we are entrusted with someone's legacy, and
Yes.
that we have to be very true and respectful of that. And Elmer and I have tried, and I've continued with the whole idea of trying to be true to that legacy, to do honor to that legacy. And I know that when we unveil a wax figure, even if the person is no longer here physically, um, there could be a loved one there.
True.
Um, I talk about Merle Evers Williams
Mm-hmm.
when we unveiled her figure, and it was at the convention center at the NAACP convention, and we
Ah.
unveiled her figure, and her daughter Rena and granddaughter were there. And we unveiled a figure on the stage at the convention, and then we moved it into an exhibit where we had other figures from the civil rights movement. And we had Merle and Medgar standing next to each other.
Oh wow.
And Rena, her daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and Rena's daughter were standing there and holding one another. And when I came up, I said, "Rena, are you okay?" And Rena said, "Dr. Martin, this is the first time since I was 3 years old that I've seen my mother and my father together, even
Oh.
in wax. This, that there was something powerful, because she saw her father gunned down right
Yeah.
there before her eyes when she was about 3 years old, and she's saying the first time that I have actually seen my mother and my father together since I was 3 years old."
Wow. That tells you that it has impact, and you never know of the impact.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
so that's totally beautiful. So the criterion is you got to really do something. You can't just be shaking and making people laugh. This ain't no
Right,
buffoonery.
right,
You have to impact the community in a very impactful
right,
way.
right.
Love that. So are you and Dr. Martin in the let's talk about that. Do you have
Yeah.
a figure of you and your your late husband?
um I know that maybe when I'm gone, I can't imagine walking in and seeing this wax figure of myself. Oh
Of
my God,
yourself.
no,
So it's
I
not
can't.
one now. Oh my goodness.
Not one now, no.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I've told the students at Morgan reached out to me when Elmer died, and they were talking about a wax figure. And I told them that the only way I could stand it, I think, if a wax figure of Elmer, is that it was the two of us together,
Got it.
because we truly were a team.
Yes.
And maybe I could stand it, but I hate taking pictures of myself. My friends and I, when we were planning for our school reunion, we were on Zoom, and I do the, not having my picture, the image of me. And so, look, being here talking to you and having to look at this picture, the temptation is to click the button, and so that I'm no longer there.
Oh no, 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 no. We're not doing that tonight.
Yeah.
This is not a Zoom. But I get what you're saying. Like you'd
Yeah.
rather just be anonymous and just speak.
Yes.
Okay, got it, got it. So you're not there yet, but it's gonna happen. I know it's gonna happen. So this is, and before we move, because we're here for question C and to talk about voting and move towards that. I just really wanted to give like a background of the museum, and this is the last question per the museum. Dr. Elmer Martin, his this is his legacy. He died in Egypt. What year was that?
2001.
In 2001. And so you came back, and you guys were away, you said, on a study trip. So you
Yes.
came back. What made you continue? Because you could have packed it up and sat somewhere and said, okay, I'm done with this. What made you say, I'm going to continue doing this work and I'm going to continue his legacy?
When I was on that plane flying from Egypt,
Mm,
um, again, as I said, knowing that Elmer's body lay beneath me
yes.
on the plane,
Mm,
I said to him, Elmer, I'm going to do everything I can to keep your dream and vision alive, because you not only lived for this, but you died for it as well.
Wow. Black women, I tell you, not just because I'm one, but listen, the black women are special. I'll tell you, black women
Yeah,
are special.
yeah,
Because that says something, and that's love. When you want to continue to extend your time in your life to your partner, even in death. So to you, I say, Ashe, that's a beautiful thing. I'm so happy you continued this legacy. And now this is the last question for real. North Avenue. Why you guys? Because you could be anywhere. I'm sure once you become a national phenomenon, um, and you're especially the act of Congress. Then you have the major schools, you have the major institutions, you have entities that want to see what this is.
right.
You're not a local sensation. Let's be clear. You're not just a chicken box and a half and half, Dr. Martin. you you are a thing when you become the national and an act of Congress. So why would you stay, like you said, in a fragile neighborhood in North Avenue? Why wouldn't you go downtown?
We felt and still feel that we could develop tourism there, and we could show that people will leave the inner harbor, which is the
The
sometimes the
hub.
tourist
Ex-
trap, but the tourist destination. That
hmm
they will leave the inner harbor to come to a museum on the corner of North Avenue and Bond Street, and that our visitors come from all over. Someone who's a tour operator, she takes groups to Ghana, and she was saying that once one of the people in she was at one of the slave forts, slave castles, and one of them said, "Well, we want to be like that wax museum you have in Baltimore," and she's in Ghana.
Look at that.
We were in Ghana and Ivory Coast, and every place we went, someone Elmer had on a Great Blacks in Wax shirt one day, and someone passed by and said, "And we're in Ghana," and he says, "Have you seen that museum, man? You need to go see it." And Elmer said, "I sure will. When I get back to the States, I'm going to go see it." Same thing happened to us in Israel. We
Wow.
were walking around with this tour guide and this group from Baltimore, and someone was getting off a bus from a Baptist church from the U.S., and they saw Elmer and me and said, "Oh, you're from the Great Blacks in Wax Museum," but here we are in Israel. Our Israeli tour guide was just shocked. So the idea that you can have that kind of impact and be on the corner of North Avenue and Broadway and bring that kind of traffic and develop tourism, I just don't feel that there has been an appreciation for the power that the museum. There should be businesses in
All up and
that
down the
community.
corridor.
Exactly,
Yes. Hmm.
and I still fight for that, and I think um, people are beginning to see the potential, but it's been probably 40 years old, so it's been a battle.
Hmm.
But what the Great Blacks in Wax should be, um, people are just coming to the party really and understanding
And
that.
you've been partying for years, and
Yeah,
they and they
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
they and they coming when you're drunk. It's all good.
Yes, yes.
It's all good. But that's a beautiful thing. When I came here to go to Morgan, and I have to shout out Morgan and Dr. Elma and all of these Morgan nights you brought up today. But I came here to go to Morgan, and that was one of the things that they talked about. Was one of the major things. It was no Reginald Lewis then. That the Great Blacks and Wax Museum was the thing,
Yeah.
and that we needed to go, and that a former professor, that was his brainchild and his wife. And so I heard about it early. I think it was freshman orientation that they spoke of the Wax Museum, and it's just in Baltimore. We don't know. We're spoiled. We don't know what we have. I think in a lot of ways, it's genius to put Black people in wax. It's genius with anything we're doing anyway, but definitely to put us in wax, and
Anyway,
to tell our story in a way that it doesn't just wash away. It impacts you, and you can see it, and it's immersive. That's next level.
right. And I tell people that we're telling a history that has been largely faceless.
Hmm. Hmm.
And those wax figures put a face on a history that has been faceless.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I just feel so really really blessed to be able to do what I do.
Wow, that's you so amazing when you say faceless. And the only faces we know is what they want to put forward. They talk about certain faces that they're comfortable or that they've neutralized the story.
Hmm.
And so we only hear about certain people, but our history took many people. And this type of oppression and suppression and maliciousness takes a plethora of people with a lot of gifts to get us where we are today. And so I tell folks, listen, Great National Great Blacks and Wax Museum, 1601 North Avenue. Beat me there. I'll see you there, but beat me there. So we're definitely going to jump into the reason for the season. And we are in the presidential election. We're in the national election season. And Dr. Martin, I have to hear what you think. It is something to see.
It
Trumpy,
it
Trumpy,
really
Trumpy.
is. Michelle Obama said something that I think we really need to think about.
Okay.
She said that Kamala Harris has demonstrated her genius.
Mm-hmm.
She has she's more prepared for the job, and both she and President Obama say that more prepared for the job than any president who George Washington had no experience.
Mm-mm.
President Barack Obama had no experience. I mean, she comes in as vice president
Yep.
of the United States. Um, she's asked to prove everything.
Yeah, ain't that something?
Everything that she says she has to prove. She's against an opponent who can't put two sentences together that make sense. But
Say it
Kamala
again.
Harris, as our we have to be careful about using the word articulate. But as articulate as she is,
Mm-hmm.
and the genius that she is, and the woman is a genius, but she has to prove that she's a genius. And you got someone who again can't put two sentences together, who slurs his words, who you get a lot of word salad, and is about grift and selfishness and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
and has to prove nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it's scary. You know what it says to me in a lot of ways is the mentality of America.
Hmm.
That he can even be present, that
Yes.
he can even have a platform, that he can have 42% of the vote, never mind 49%, 50%, whatever it is. That someone as first of all a convicted felon. Let's talk
Yes.
about that.
Yes.
We got a convicted felon has shown to have very shady movements in his personal life, in his professional life. And as we saw in the last iteration of his rally, the attacking of people, the racism, the bigotry, and just real unintelligible. He's incorrigible.
Yes.
And for us as a nation to platform such foolishness tells the mentality of this country it's scary. And I don't care who you are, it's scary.
It truly is scary. And people talk about being scared because the stakes are so high. And
Absolutely.
I didn't know what I went to bed expecting Hillary Clinton to be the president, and I wake up
And you got up, you got Trumpy.
and so I want November 5th to get here. I've voted early and done what I've voted for Kamala Harris and Angela Alsabrook, and done
Hmm.
my duty. You
Okay.
know, um, but I don't want to go to bed and then wake up and find that it was all for naught. And
That's
And
true.
I'm trying to I'm not the door knock on doors and call people and ask them to vote. That's not me. If you have a platform, so you can
That's
do
my
that.
job, man.
Yeah, but I can support all if they said Kamala Harris needs a billboard somewhere or whatever, I can support that kind of thing.
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
can certainly talk to we have a tour guide training program that we do through YouthWorks, um, and we train 14 to 18-year olds to be tour guides,
Mm.
and those children are amazing. I am so proud of them, and they don't come in with the knowledge that they walk away with. And Senator Corey McCray told me that we perform miracles, and sort of as a testing ground for our students. For the last 2 years, they've taken Mayor Scott on a tour of the museum, and he's amazed by the knowledge that these children impart that they don't come in with.
That's it.
They
That's
come
it.
in with some of them. They're very bright,
Mm-hmm.
well spoken, all of that, and have learned a lot, but not a lot about their history.
Yep.
And but they embrace it, and
Mm-hmm.
they go beyond the information given. They do research, and they learn so much more. I tell them, you have to make you read the signs in the museum. We're talking to you about the history, but you have to make this your own.
Hmm.
And they buy that. They do that,
They
and
tap
come
in.
away standing there, presenting information to Mayor Scott and to Senator Corey McCray, and they are fascinated. They stand there fascinated, seeing our children do their thing.
That's amazing, and I want to kind of, and as we spoke about this, that we have to have true imagination for our children. When we're amazed, and they have so much genius, and we're not recognizing it. That's the
Exactly.
true imagination for Black children. They are amazing,
Yes.
and they are the standard in society. Whatever they do, everyone emulates.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh,
we really, yeah, we really have to look.
yes.
If they produce music, they're gonna follow it. Whatever they put on their bodies and clothes, they're gonna follow it. Whatever they're speaking, coming out of their mouth, everyone else is saying it. We have to not limit our children. We have to have pure imagination for their genius. So I
Yes.
commend you for throwing, because when you know your history, then you know how to make history that makes sense
Mm-hmm.
when you know where you come from. And so I just really love that they are embracing that and they are manifesting it. And listen, these leaders we got, Mr. McCray and Brother Brandon, y'all better imagine something for these Black children. They're great.
Yes. Yes.
They are great. Some of
They.
them will be in that museum. They will be in the National Great Blacks because they're special. And we have to be able to hone into that and build that. So you got Dr. Kevin Daniels. He said you're his hero.
Oh my.
And he said absolutely. Yeah, he said you're his hero. So he put a comment here about you.
Oh my goodness. Well, tell him the feeling is mutual.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, this election is something to see, and I just really wanted to hear what you think about it. But politics are local. I tell everyone is we have to, as Black people, we've survived Andrew Jackson,
Hmm.
Ronald Reagan. I can go on and on. We have survived some presidents that wasn't playing with no African American people, with no American
Hmm.
Africans. So
Hmm.
we will survive. Yes, it won't be fun. Yes, we won't like if Trump is president. Some will like, but most of us will not.
Well, not.
But we will survive. We are survivors. We will get up 10 toes down and do what we have to do every day. So the bigger thing is when it comes to where we are is politics is local, and on the local ballot is question C.
Yes.
Okay, so what is question C, Dr. Martin?
It question C is almost like throw in the kitchen everything, yeah, including the kitchen sink. So it's jurisdictions have to create legislation that allows them to function.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, Baltimore, in Baltimore County, where I voted, you look at the bonds and the school legislation, and you've got to support
Mm-hmm.
the legislation that allows your schools to function.
That's true.
Um, and with question C, they're looking at community economic development.
Yes, ma'am.
They're looking at even something like sanitation and all of those tasks that are required for the city to function well. And
Hmm.
they have we applied under what was called the Cultural Spaces Grant.
Yes, ma'am.
And the Cultural Spaces Grant allows cultural institutions like Great Blacks and Wax
Hmm.
and other museums, other cultural institutions, to be able to get capital funding if for our expansion, to be able to get funding to enhance our exhibits, to get
Hmm.
funding to be able to educate our children, like our tour guide training program and so forth. So within question C,
Hmm.
those aspects of functioning that allows the community, small businesses, and museums and other cultural institutions to survive and function and have the resources they need.
Absolutely. And this is on our ballot. It's other questions too, but this is one of them. And it says a yes vote supports authorizing the city to issue up to 50 million in bonds, with bond revenue going to renovation or rehabilitation of land or property for public safety, health, and environmental reasons. And this is the promotion of the arts and culture in Baltimore City. And
Yes,
you guys are part of that. And
yes.
so this bonds, the bond, this 50 million bond, if we do get it, it would help the expansion. What do you guys plan with monies from this bond?
We have the short term goal of rehabilitating the remaining buildings in our block.
Okay.
Um, Great Blacks and Wax has acquired all of the properties in the 1600 block,
Beautiful.
and a majority of them have been demolished
Yes.
for a block long museum that will go from the 1601 to 1649.
Hmm.
On the Bond Street side, there are 7 buildings remaining. The
Oh,
1601 is the firehouse where most of our exhibits are.
yes, ma'am.
1603 is where the slave ship is.
Okay.
1605 is where the President Obama and the Walking in the Footsteps of the Ancestors exhibit is. And
Okay.
then we have 3 vacant, 1607, '09, and 11. We're going to start by demolishing those vacant buildings and starting there,
Okay.
creating about 20 to 20,000 square feet of space.
Oh, wow.
And we're going to tell a story that that begins. We tell 5,000 years of history right now. Our story is going to tell 250,000 years of history, going back to Africa as the birthplace of humankind.
Beautiful. That means black women will be present, baby.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. No question.
Yes, I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, so just being able to start there and
Okay.
tell that history, starting in ancient Africa and bringing it up to modern times.
Beautiful.
We're going to have a children's museum, what
Ah.
we are calling right now With a Child's Heart,
Hmm.
and to be able to focus history on the ways in which children can learn history,
Hmm.
but and uh, the Children's Museum taking them through starting in a village in Africa and taking them back in time, but
Ah.
take and but ending up at the circus where we have Ephraim Williams, who
Hmm.
was a circus owner and master, a black man who owned the circus. Um, the jazz singer Bessie,
Williams.
what's her name?
Isn't that Bessie Williams? I don't know her name. Maybe I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
it's gone, but
Okay.
she was a part of his of his troupe, and he
Hmm.
did 180 animal acts and things like that, that, and therefore um, there can be rides that children, if we put them in a circus venue, then they can have games and rides, and those would be focused on Black history.
Oh,
Again,
wow.
yeah. So that looking at through the act of Congress, we became the National Great Blacks in Wax Museum and Justice Learning Center.
Oh,
So with the Justice Learning Center, we can look at the voting, um,
yes.
the whole political process, uh,
Yes.
the whole way government is supposed to function. You know, teaching our children those kinds of things, but also looking at the way when injustice can
Yeah,
work.
you got to look at policy. Policy has
Yes,
shaped Black lives. The
exactly,
reasoning we're in a lot of position is bad policy. So it's
exactly,
important for us to shape new policy
right,
and policy that is indicative and sensitive to us as a people.
absolutely.
Mm.
So, just a broad story that we will be allowed to tell, where right now it might be a scene in the museum, making it a whole gallery. So we have a scene in the museum that focuses on science and invention,
Mm.
and we've got Granville T. Woods, the inventor, and Charles Drew, who developed blood plasma and created
Yep.
some of the first
The blood
blood,
bank.
but turning that into an entire gallery versus a scene, so that we can
Mm.
do so much more. And so that's what the expansion will do. And the funds from question C will give us a jump start
Yeah.
in trying to look at enhancing our exhibit, bringing in researchers, deciding what the story, the broader story is going to be,
Wow. So it sounds like a grand scale. You're going to scale up your operation.
Yes.
Are you going to keep the mansion? Because there's an opening and then that mansion. I've been to a exhibit there by Anson Osaka. He had
Oh yes, yeah.
yeah, brother Anson. That's my brother. He had his
Oh,
exhibit there. And
yes,
so are you guys going to keep that mansion? Because that's history too. That place is beautiful.
yes, it is, and we right now we have an exhibit at the mansion called Cash Crop,
Mm.
and it's by a young artist. He calls himself creator slash artist named Stephen Hayes. Went to Duke University and all of that, um, and it's about Stephen has these figures that were casted in concrete.
Hmm.
And when you get a chance, go online and look up Cash Crop and Stephen Hayes and all that. It is powerful.
Wow.
He,
Is that there now? That's at
it's
the mansion?
it's at the museum now. It's in the mansion,
Oh, I'm going to go
in
see
that
that.
big room in the
Yes.
in the mansion. And since February,
Hmm.
and so um, we know that it will at least be there until December, and we're trying to work things out with Stephen about. I don't want to ever give it up, but but anyway, back to December. It's Stephen casted his family and friends in concrete,
Wow.
and so you have these figures that were really life casted of people, and just thinking about how grueling it must have been to have this concrete on you, and
Yes.
whatever Stephen did to to transform them into these concrete figures. And I asked there had some fifth graders, some kids there, and I asked them how would they feel with that concrete on them, on their face and so forth. And one of them said, "I feel stuck." One of them said, "I feel angry."
Hmm.
Um, and one of them said, "I couldn't move." Um, and one of them said, "I feel afraid."
Hmm.
And Stephen said that as he was putting his little cousins and or in this concrete, um, he said he asked one of his friends, and he said that his friend said, "I feel trapped." Kids saying
Yes.
fifth grade kids saying, "I feel stuck." He's
Wow.
saying trapped. He said, "I feel powerless." The little kid saying, "I can't move." So you're getting the same thing from them. And one of the figures is Stephen. He didn't start out intending to do a figure of himself and put himself and cast him in the concrete, But he said as he began to hear that, he felt, I need to know what this
How
is.
this feels. Yes.
Yes. And the larger, he's calling it cash crop because of the ways that during slavery, that's what we were.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
crop, during, even when we were on the plantations, the crops that we had to pick
Yep.
were for the cash to
Plus
enrich
cash.
our
Exactly.
owners. Um, Even today, when you look at um, the sex trade, human trafficking, we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about people being used as a cash crop.
Mm-hmm.
So the exhibit is about all of that.
Wow. And it's some kind. I have to go see that.
Oh yeah, and just it is so powerful. That the chains that he used railroad ties to make these slave chains that are tied to the people, and sometimes he encourages people, and so do we, to walk through, and you're tripping on the chains, you know. And when you think about the slave ship experience, for example,
what? How did they do it? Ugh,
yes,
how did they
that's
move
it.
around?
That's
How did
it.
they do it? And so I just know that we're great people in so many ways. And you know what I hear a lot, Dr. Martin. What do you think about when folks say, "Well, why do you guys just don't move on? Why do you need to keep talking about slavery? Why why are you doing a wax figures about a slave ship? That was those people are dead now." What do you say to that?
With I wrote an article for the Afro about, because our exhibit, it was 2020, and our lynching exhibit was 25 years old.
Mm,
And Dorothy Bulwer from the Afro was asking, why a lynching exhibit, and I get that all the time. Or the question why? Dorothy wasn't asking that particular question, but how 25 years ago did you see that an exhibit on lynching would be so absolutely necessary? And I say in the article that um, with the George Floyd murder, that it took the young lady on her or 9 seconds on her cell phone and iPhone and phone camera and all of that,
mm-hmm.
um, for white people to stop asking the question, why don't you get over it? Because for me, you don't even know what it is.
Ooh, 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 ooh,
When
ooh.
you have learned what it is, then you can maybe tell me to get over it.
What
But
is it?
yeah,
Ooh,
but what is it?
mm, hmm.
And so that's why we have to tell our story,
We have to tell our
because
story.
there are people who talk about slavery wasn't that bad.
Yep.
Uh, you know,
That we took care of those people.
yeah.
Hmm.
You
Wow.
had someone from a station that said, well, when blacks, when they were mated with the Africans, they got better skin. They got lighter skin. They were a very dark people, and now they're lighter skinned. Some of them even almost white looking.
So that's
And
how it works. So that
yes,
just
so
genetics, right?
that we should be, or the governor of in Florida, where I'm from, by the way, but a governor in Florida talking about the benefits of slavery.
That saying guy, he's a
Yeah,
mess.
yes,
A mess.
the
Santas.
Satan, we call him the Satan. Um,
Oh, I love it.
my
But you're right.
favorite.
How they negate their own. It's like throwing your putting your hand in and then hiding your hand. You throw stuff and
Hmm.
then you hide your hand, and that's what I see. They do not want to talk about their ancestors,
Right.
and that's the only way we can go forward, if that we communicate it and we understand and we empathize of the impact of it. Then this country can finally have a real space in the world. But then we continue to lie, hide, and rescheme, rewrite books and act as
Mm-hmm.
if it didn't happen because you're fragile,
Yes.
we're going to continue to have the issues we have in this country.
And our kids will miss those yardsticks
Oh,
that my husband Elmer talked about.
yeah, and not just black children, white children are missing
That's it.
yardsticks.
Yeah,
This
that's
is all children. We deprive them with our fragileness of the truth, and
it.
when you
Hmm.
deprive someone of the truth, there's a lack of growth there.
I had two young white guys who were at the museum from Baltimore County, and I was doing the tour. I'd gotten pressed into service because I still serve as a tour guide.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, I do. But I got pressed into service, and this was a while ago. But I'll be doing a tour on Saturday, as a matter of fact. But they were clearly not wanting to be at the museum, and one of them said, "Why do we have to be here and hear this?"
Mm.
And the kids, some of them were kind of the kids in their group egging them on, and oh yeah, 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 get her. And some of them were, how dare you insult that poor lady, and all of that. So, but I said, thank you for asking. When I look around in this group, I see some of you. I see some white students. I see some African American students. I see some Latino, some Asian. With Latino, I'm not sure what term to use, but that I know that at that moment I said Latino,
Hmm.
and I said, but whatever your race, your color, your creed, you're the ones who are going to make the laws and govern this
Yes,
nation. And if you're going to be a good parent, a good minister, a good doctor, a good restaurant worker, whatever, you will be better at it if you learn all of the stories that make up who we are as the United States of America.
absolutely.
And today you get to learn about people like me whose story should be told. You get to learn a part of that story because it is not just my story, but yours as well. As a person who makes up the United States of America,
Mm.
that's for me is why you're here. And one of the young men looked at me and he did a thumbs up and said, I got it.
Wow. And a lot of times we want to attack other people and why they don't, but they really have a lack of knowledge of,
Hmm.
first of all, of self, of what happened and how they had a hand in what happened. So
Hmm.
it negates the actual story. So we have to kind of have a little empathy with that and kind of explain that. Listen,
Exactly,
it's your
exactly.
story
And that's
too.
what I was trying to do. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I said, um, it took courage for you to ask that question. And I know
Sure
that.
do. Sure
I
do.
said, you heard the reaction of some of your classmates
Mm-hmm.
when you asked that question. And so I thank you for having the courage to ask, not just ask that question, but having the uh, humility to
To
allow me
listen.
to answer.
Yes. Wow. That that's amazing. That's amazing. You still tour guiding. That's amazing.
Yeah, oh, I love it. I learned so much from the groups and from the
Mm-hmm.
children. A lot of my perspective about our children has come from being a tour guide.
Hmm. Uh, This was a crazy question, but it just came in my head. Has anybody like knocked over a figure or
Oh,
knocked
out of anger
broke
or
one,
just actually.
anger or just by
Yeah,
mistake?
we had a person who sued the museum. She said that the figure uh fell on her and she was injured for life. Um, she came to the courtroom, to the courthouse, and the people that she had gotten as her brought as her witnesses,
Oh my
they
gosh.
were in the car with they. She drove them to the courthouse. She was injured for life now, but she was the driver, and they're the witnesses that they get in the car with this person who's injured for life, and drive to the courthouse. And we took
Oh,
pictures of her and told gave the judge made the judge aware of that. Um, so
wow.
and people we have certain techniques. The figures that we started with, the older figures that we had took around in my car, they're a combination of beeswax and vinyl. And
Mm.
then we have the 100% beeswax, and they're like a candle. And then we've got the figures that we do today, like a President Barack Obama. We have his figure and have had it since 2009, unveiled it at Morgan.
Ooh,
um, but so his is a combination and more durable. Um,
okay.
for the figures that are made of all wax and therefore like a candle, people sometimes touch, and when you look, they've broken off a finger. They don't intend to. I'd like to think they don't intend to,
But they
but
have.
and
Wow.
sometimes we've got to walk around the museum looking for fingers because they'll get scared and throw it throw it somewhere, and we got to climb into a scene and see if we can find the finger. And my staff, we walk around with crazy glue, trying to put a finger back on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so trying to solve that problem where things are people the figures look so real, and when they look at the hands and they want to scratch and see what's underneath and
Yeah.
so forth. So all of that kind of effort to keep the figures intact.
Intact. Yeah, I'm sure that you have to kind of keep the aesthetic. So you got to
Yeah,
watch. People have to watch their hands.
yeah,
So the number one thing here that we got together is to talk about this question C and to allow this museum that has been so beautiful in our community, but also a national state in the history of America and telling the story of Black people needs more money. Public funds, it has contributed, the museum has contributed to the public, and the public should contribute to it. That's just how it is. And we implore everyone, vote yes for question C. The ones who haven't early voted yet, you still have time. Vote yes for question C. It's for the arts. I say, Dr. Martin, that art is our oxygen. It's why we bleed.
yes,
Without it, it would be a very boring world.
you're
Um,
absolutely right.
Art colors our world. It brings a different lens to the world, and we need it. Even in your house, you look for art. You look to brighten up your house. Different paint is almost like an art in your house when you paint different colors. So art is everything. It's an expression, it's creativity, and we definitely need the blacks and wax to do the scale. We need to see 250,000 years. Oh, that's amazing. Of Black history on North Avenue. And you can't get no better than that.
Thank
you,
you,
you
thank you.
can't.
I couldn't have stated it better. I just appreciate that you gave us the opportunity to help get our message out and to talk to people about why it's important to support cultural institutions like Great Blacks and Wax.
Exactly. And please, guys, you see that, vote yes for question C. It's a $50 million bond. That and all of the funds might not go to the blacks and wax, but it will definitely, whatever they get from it will help. It would help scale the museum and also the art and culture in Baltimore. Baltimore is very cultural, Dr. Martin. A lot of arts going on in Baltimore City.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're a very artistic city, and so to see you guys be able to scale and make it bigger and add more buildings, and I hope some parking. And so you're looking at parking too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, we are.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Some more parking because I remember when I went to school, there was like a dentist office on the side of it. All of those buildings are just there now. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and
okay.
yeah, so being able to look at what we can do. Elmer talked about a cultural hub, what people call an arts district now, and she's
Mm-hmm.
talking about a cultural hub, and looking at the 15, 16, 1700 block, each one of them being a signature. The 1500 block being where you could have artists and artist studios and provide that the museum as the museum, but also being having other artistic venues there.
Absolutely.
There are Black people who have and people who have amazing art collections.
That's it.
So having a place to be able to show that.
Yeah.
Uh, but and also view the museum and the children's gallery, and then the 1700 block, which he saw as an edutainment venue. Um, so My phone is getting ready to die. We don't want that to happen.
Oh, that can't happen, Dr. Martin. You got to stick that. You got to give it some juice.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, so we
yes.
can't have that. But yeah, so that is amazing. Past the museum is that apartment building. I wish that could be like artist residence. You know that big building. I know you
The
plug. It's a huge building. It's been there sitting there at least 20 years.
Gompers building on in the 1700 block.
Yes, yes, ma'am. On that corner
Yes, that well the federal government, because it used to be a federal government owned building,
building. Yes.
and they have declared that you can't have residential housing in that building, and we're hoping
Well,
we
maybe
can.
entertainment or something.
Yes, exactly. We're Elmer used to talk about where you could have poetry slams and things like that, and and have jazz and all of those kinds of things. Having retail space.
Yes, merchandising that brings
Yes,
people food.
yes,
You know,
exactly, exactly.
those are things that area deserves that. And it has. You guys have actually kept the vitality. That grocery, the not grocery store. Well, it was a grocery store. That strip mall across the street
Hmm.
has been good for a minute, bad for a minute. Now nothing's in it. That could be something. It's a
Yes,
food desert, also.
absolutely. Yes.
So we have to look at that. We're in the city, guys, Baltimore City.
And the thing too is going back to this idea of tourism, that we wanted people with you have to have vision to lead sometimes,
Yes,
and we
ma'am.
wanted them to see the potential
Yes.
of a museum there that's attracting people from all over the world, and from the mid-Atlantic. That's where most of our visitors come from.
Mm-hmm.
But during spring break, they come from farther distances, so they
Mm-hmm.
can come from Florida, or we always for some reason got a groups from Wisconsin that
Mm-hmm.
don't know
And I know you
exactly
get a
why.
lot of schools. You get a
A
lot
lot
of
of schools, and many of those schools are coming from New York or Pennsylvania,
yes.
from the Mid Atlantic, and so we're talking about buses that come in, and when they come in, the question they ask was, after Great Blacks in Wax, what else is there to see? We're in the city. We enjoy being able to come to this museum, but what else is there? And there
Imagine if
should
that was
be
a hub of our things.
exactly,
People
yeah.
could get so many different iterations of black.
Yes, and
And
that's what they're saying. There should be other kinds of things, the artist studios and art galleries and so forth, right within that area that you could
yeah,
go and
the
see and see
drumming, all of the things of
all of that.
us. Yes,
Yes,
yes, yes. Wow. Well, listen, vote yes for question C. That's the start. That would start. That would give the museum the propensity to scale, to bring better stories, more developed stories, more room to develop more stories. And listen, it has been a cultural icon in that area. You can't go in East Baltimore off North Avenue and don't know that either March Funeral Home and the museum. That's the two. You know what I mean? That's like the two biggest things on this. And then the courthouse too. The courthouse has been there a lot, but definitely March Funeral Home, which is a history in itself, and the museum. So we have to definitely support that. And this is why we're here tonight. Question C, yes, guys, please. And Dr. Martin, where should everyone come? We've been here an hour. Where should everyone come if they come into the museum?
we are at 1601 East North Avenue, 1601-03, and actually 1601 through 1605 East North Avenue in Baltimore. They can go on Facebook and Instagram and find out information about us. We go to our website and come and visit the museum.
Absolutely. And Dr. Martin, you promised me we're gonna do a walkthrough. So don't I have to
Yes, we are. We
Yes,
are.
right. I gotta put it
Oh,
so everybody will know. We're gonna do a
yeah,
walkthrough and we're gonna tape it. We're gonna talk about the museum, right?
right.
Right.
I'm going to take you on a tour.
Yes, I can't wait. I can't wait. It's not gonna be now, guys, but we're gonna do it. And we're gonna do it and we'll make sure you guys see. Because sometimes, we live in an area where people gotta see first. Unfortunately, everything goes to the eyes, nothing goes to the ears. Everything is seen. It's digital technology, and we gotta see it. And so I want to actually let folks see it, and hope that they would come and bring their children and their families and learn our history.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
that's what it's about. So listen, Dr. Martin, I am so grateful. I'm just so humbly grateful that you chose Black Box Radio to talk about this. And anytime you guys call, we're gonna come running. Just remember that.
And I want to thank you. Every opportunity that we get to get the word out about the museum is just a blessing. So thank you so much, and thank you for making this easy. Even though you gave me some grief in the beginning, trying to get on and all of that, but
You weren't
once
supposed to
we
say that.
you gave me grief, but you made this so pleasant, and I just really, it was like a conversation. It
Yep,
really,
and that's what I wanted to be. But I also want you to do one more thing before you leave. You got to leave us a jewel because I know you're a smart lady, Dr. Martin. Leave us your jewel. Leave us something to inspire us.
well, I go back to what I said earlier, that especially when it comes to our youth, we have to remember that there are no limits to what we can do, because there are no limits to what we have done.
Ooh, Sheesh, that was nice. So it's no limits to what we can do because there's no limits to what we have done. That's a word right there. You preaching too, I see. That's absolutely a word. So listen, guys, I want you guys to listen within this week or next week, go to the museum. 1601 North Avenue, East North Avenue. Please visit, tell your friends, tell your family, vote yes for question C. Early voting is going on now. The last day to vote is Tuesday, and then we're going to know who's going to be president, but we also going to know about question C. So please vote for question C on the ballot. It's on a local ballot, and everything's local. That's where it is. That's where we're at. We're going to say good night. We out of here, Dr. Martin.
Thank you, Queen.
You're welcome. You're so welcome. Good night, guys.
Good
Can you give
night,
me? Can you give us a
everyone.
peace sign? I know you got peace in you. There we go. Good night. Yes.
Queen, Queen.
Power to the people. Power to the people. That's right. So don't go nowhere, Dr. Martin. Good night, guys.